I want to welcome Peter Hurwitz here today. As I mentioned, Peter is the principal Clarity Sciences. He's our clinical research organization partner. He's been working with us almost a year now on a number of different studies. He's going to share with you findings of a recently completed studies. I don't want to take away Peter's thunder, but please help me welcome Peter Hurwitz.
Everybody can hear me? Home as well? Stay close to here. Stay close to here. So let me just tell you a little bit about my background. 35 years in the healthcare space. Started beginning of the 90s, launching a drug for J&J called Duragesic transdermal fentanyl. It was a patch for cancer patients. That led, obviously, to 10 years later, the beginning of the opioid crisis, because they were using some of those opioids that were originally intended for cancer patients for non-cancer patients. And that's where you got the Purdue Pharma and all these OxyContin issues, et cetera, and it really blew up. For the last probably 15 or 20 years, I've made a commitment to see if we could identify alternative therapies and treatment strategies for that opioid crisis. So I've worked with the White House, both Congress and Senate over the last 3 administrations to see if we can identify some of those novel opportunities and treatment approaches, working in conjunction with various experts in the pain space. I'm on the board of several pharmaceutical companies. I work with Allergan with botulinum neurotoxin, Botox, not on the cosmetic side, as you can tell, but on the therapeutic side, launching a couple indications for pain, one of them overactive bladder, and some others migraine headaches that we've been able to do. Have been a clinical researcher for the last 11 or 12 years. I'm a TV anchor for a physician's television station out of New York. I attend last year, I think, pre-COVID, 54 medical congresses, interviewing the scientific committees on air for about 130,000 U.S. physicians across all specialties in terms of what's the new research, what are the new guidelines, what are they saying, FDA interviews, CEDAR interviews, et cetera. And so I don't have the skin in the game here. I'm a researcher through and through. I was chuckling. Where's Steve at? Steve, raise your hand. There he is in the back. Steve. So I was chuckling when Steve was saying, out of the blue, I got a call from Jay, et cetera. Similarly, I got a call from Jay. And again, I don't advertise our researching business. We're pretty successful in terms of working with big pharma. And he called me up, and I get probably 3 to 4 calls a month from people. I don't want to say similar to Jay, but reach out and see one of our published studies. We've done about 40 of them that have been published in peer-reviewed journals, scientific peer-reviewed journals over the last 10 years or so. And each one of them is a big deal. And so people tend to read them. A lot of the scientists, a lot of the clinicians, both US and other parts of North America and worldwide, and they'll reach out to me and say, hey, I read this study. Can you do a study for us? I've got this product, etc. Jay called me up and did something similar. I mean, I don't want to repeat what Steve said, but it was pretty much the same thing. I've got this product. I read some of your studies. I want to do the study. Well, tell me about your, again, 3 or 4 months. I want to do a study. We have this, neuroscience, technology. It sends a signal to the brain, neural pathways, et cetera. And again, I'm in the pain space. It's okay. Heard it. No drug, non-invasive, patch. Started with socks, et cetera. Okay. Not necessarily brushing them off, but I've heard it before, and I've heard the pitch before, and I'm a data-driven guy. And so he said, I'm thinking about doing a study or what have you. Would you come up to Toronto? Would I come up to Toronto? My usual answer is wherever that is, my plate's kind of full at the moment, especially if, I don't have the data. There's no real research from my perspective, validated research that I can hang my hat on. And I hadn't researched, Jay's company and Jay's product. But again, we've sold, several million of these socks with the technology. And my response was, how many returns you get? Well less than 1%. Okay, light bulb, ears raised a little bit, intrigued. And so I did come up to Toronto, and it wasn't negative 147 degrees Celsius. I'm again US, so I can't do the conversion, carry the 9, divide by 3. I don't know what it is. I think it was even colder last February when I actually came up. And I didn't bring a coat because I left Rhode Island where I live, and it was like 55 degrees. So after we had sat down for a little bit, he says, I want to do some research. And going through it, I said, okay, but if you're going to do it, you have to do it right. You're going to be hands off. And, I've got to control it and be independent. I'm going to get US physicians or worldwide experts who know the space to basically, I'm not a clinician, I'm a researcher, but I always have the clinicians validate what I think, and I've been in the business long enough to identify those who are pretty much the leaders, presidents of the various medical associations now, to say, okay, is this something that we would want to get into and invite them to be a principal investigator to see if that would be a viable potential option, knowing what they know or don't know in the field. And we'll go through it. And as soon as they say, yes, interesting, intriguing, or whatever, okay, it checks my boxes as well. And so I agreed to conduct a study with Jay. And again, guys and ladies, I don't have to be here. Got a wife and 7 kids at home. It's a Saturday morning. You don't have to be here, and you don't have to obviously take out, take time for those of you watching here as well. Sometimes my wife, likes it when I'm out of the house. And they say, going to Toronto, have a good time. So I'll go through a little bit about now. So we decided to do the study. And when we're talking about a study, you need validation. And in the US and worldwide, I've got a couple of formal clinical trials going on right now for FDA. FDA about 3 or 4 years ago came out with new guidelines called real world evidence. And they said, okay, instead of those formal clinical trials where it costs several $1 million and several years to complete, there's also something called real world evidence where we are actually seeing actual people in the actual response of the actual therapeutics to see if they work in the real world environment. All those formal clinical trials for FDA regulation, FDA approval, et cetera, are very strictly controlled in terms of parameters. And so they don't, even though they may say for safety and efficacy, et cetera, to make sure that there's no serious adverse events that people will have, but safety is the primary reason why it is so controlled with FDA. And obviously doesn't work in terms of efficacy. For a non-invasive patch, non-drug patch, the level is a little bit less than something that you're jabbing into you, going systemic, et cetera. All right, so having a non-invasive, non-drug type of product is intriguing, especially now with the opioid crisis and some of those other areas. I've worked very closely with the NFL, National Football League, and the Players Association because a lot of those 30-year-olds who are now retired after several years in the NFL, at the end of each, if they were in it for a little bit, at the end of each day, whether it be a practice or their game, they actually had little packs of pills on their locker room seat to recover from the battering that they took during the day. If they did not get ready, and we're ready for the next day. Somebody else was right behind them to take their place. And so they live with that. And so I've worked with the NFL, PA, and some of the retired players to really share some of those things that we've been able to do to try and find some of those alternatives to the NSAIDs and anti-inflammatories and prescription opioids that so many people take because they don't have an option. They don't think they have an option. And the toxicities and the side effects, whether it be ulcers or gastric bleeding or other things, are very real. And so close to my heart is trying to find and identify other alternatives. And so we developed, now Jay checked, green lighted it. And so me and the scientific team that we have down in Rhode Island and across the country, okay, let's do a study. And an IRB, it's an IRB approved trial. IRB is, and again, you don't have to remember this, but just to share with you a little bit about it. IRB is Institutional Review Board. Institutional Review Board was implemented. All formal trials right now should be IRB approved. IRB, Institutional Review Board, was put in place after World War II when the Nazis were experimenting on people during World War II. In order to make sure that patients who are enrolled in all trials understand the benefits and risks, it goes through an ethical review board to make sure that you are not introducing untoward or benefits or risks specifically that they don't know about, okay, that they're volunteering to be in the study. And so all the studies should be IRB approved. Minimal risk, non-invasive, again, observational study. We're observing the response to a specific treatment that the physician gives to a patient. And in this case, the Freedom Super Patch with VTT, the haptic vibro-tactile trigger technology. And we also looked at the sleep patch, the REM patch, which again, we're just completing the data receipt right now in terms of enrollment, and hopefully we'll have some results to share with you probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks or so. And so in addition to that, we're going to evaluate the success, efficacy of the patch, not only to those patients, but using validated scales. So again, if somebody out there did a study and asked the patient, hey, did it work well, or didn't it work well, or what have you, it's really a non-objective study. So in order to get over some of those critiques and validation, you want to incorporate various scales and validated scales that have been tested already over 1,000, 2,000 times in other studies to make sure that the questions are objective, not subjective, all right? So you're not leading the patient or whomever's answering those survey questions in the wrong direction. So these are all validated scales. For the pain patch, we used the brief pain inventory. It was developed in 1974 by Charlie Copeland, I know, at MD Anderson. And it was originally used for cancer patients and evaluating their cancer pain. So we've used that. It's still in use today. We use it in the pain studies that we do pretty much all the time because it is validated. And when you end up having the results and they're positive or negative, people can't critique the way you ask the questions. Very, very important. Okay. And then for the sleep one, we used another validated scale. In addition to that, we also want to say, okay, well, if they have a response to the active treatment, what happens if we introduce a control group or one that's not active? And we're doing that as well. So I'll share with you really the process of that particular study. As I said, we identify experts. And again, I run everything by experts before I get involved with a study. In the pain, so this Harmony study had a pain arm with a pain patch and the sleep arm with the sleep patch. Sleep patch, again, we're going to evaluate later on. But both arms of the study in Harmony are led by two international experts. You guys can look these guys up. They're they talk, they're presidents, past presidents of their various associations. Paul is a sleep specialist out of Pennsylvania. Jeff, who I've known for 25 years, was a professor in New Jersey at Rutgers and part of Englewood Hospital, and now is a professor of medicine of pain down in Miami, at University of Miami. Large practice. So what did we consider for inclusions into this study? Ages 18 to 85, both males and females. They have to provide written informed consent. That's that IRB avenue. They have to recognize and understand the benefits and the risks of the study. They've received a freedom patch from their physician, and they've been diagnosed with mild, moderate, severe, acute, or chronic pain. Again, mild, moderate, severe pain, scale of 1 to 10 is usually defined as mild 0 to 3, moderate 4 to 6, severe 7 to 10 on that scale. Acute or chronic, acute is something, whether it be because of an injury or illness, can be either acute or chronic. Usually definitions, depending upon who you're speaking to, expert or non-expert, is acute, up to 3, potentially 6 months, chronic after 6 month period of time. What did we exclude? We excluded anybody who had a previous use or current drug abuser, pregnancy, or somebody who has an implantable device. Again, because we don't know, and this is for that safety purpose and the risk, we don't know how those people will respond from a trial perspective. Doesn't mean that these patches aren't useful for them, nor would we have a positive outcome. We didn't study it, okay? And this study was a 14-day study. The patients were instructed to wear 1 patch per day over those 14 days. When they enrolled in the study at day 0, they filled out a survey. 7 days later, they came back into the physician's office, filled out another survey, same survey with some satisfaction and other type of question. Day 14, they answered another survey. Same survey, same question, with that same scale of brief pain. You can't really see that up there, but this is probably a 3 to 4 minute scale, looking at pain. Brief pain inventory has pain severity. How severe is the pain that you're experiencing right now in the past 24 hours or in the past week or the past few days on a scale of 1 to 10, okay? And then the interference score. How does your pain interfere with your various daily activities? Sleeping, walking up the stairs, your general mood, all those other type of things, interacting with other people, going to work, all right? We looked at that as well. We also looked at the concurrent medications that the patients were on. Are they taking over-the-counter medications, which a lot of people do? Are they taking anti-inflammatories, the Advils, the Motrins, right? The Aleve of the world. Are they taking prescription medication, Tylenol with codeine that the physician may write for them? Are they taking muscle relaxants for their pain? Are they taking opioids or other types of medication for their pain? So we record those as well, both at day 0, day 7, and day 14. The goal of any study that I do, and the goal of every researcher that when they do a study, is to publish it. And publish it not in some what we call throwaway tabloid magazines for physicians. There are a lot of them out there. But to publish it in a scientific journal that has been peer reviewed, meaning that when a researcher submits data from a study that they've done, it will be sent to probably no less than 2 to 4 reviewers, blinded. The reviewers don't know who the authors are. They'll read it for validity, for efficacy, what were the results, and is there a gap that this potential research fills in the marketplace. And then they'll say, okay, the data, the methods were good or they weren't good. They'll either prove it for publication or approve it with changes or ask queries back to the researchers before they approve it. And it has to be a unanimous consent to publish it in their journal. And so the top thing that a researcher can do is get something published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal. So I'll go through it, but what we did with Harmonies is 2 weeks ago, this was published in the Journal of Anesthesia. 40 studies, and Jay, once the supporter or funder approves it for our company to do the clinical research organization, now it's up to the principal investigators to oversee the study. Principal investigators don't know Jay. I think we've introduced on the phone a couple of times. They have no skin in the game, and it's their butt on the line. It's their reputation, right? And so they're not going to pimp themselves out. They work for Jeff, I think, consults for probably 15 different major pharmaceutical companies. And when he does a study, he'll publish the results, whether they're positive or negative. And so, that's a coin flip at the beginning. You say, okay, you're hands off, Jay. It could go either way. I don't know how it's going to go. Sounds good, right? I don't know how it's going to go. And they turned out very positive as we go through. To have the names of Jeff on it is a pretty big deal. So what did the results show? So we had 148 patients, 96 females, 56 males. Don't worry about memorizing these numbers. I think Jay is going to send you, it's online, it's published. So you can actually Google it and you'll see it. And he'll send you the PDF.
I'll send you guys a PDF to everybody here. We'll have it online Monday.
And the great thing about having these types of support material, if you will, is especially as a salesperson and being in the space for 35 years, and there's a lot of products out there. How do you differentiate? You go to CVS's or Walgreens of the world or whatever, I'm assuming they have those up here as well. How do you differentiate? And there's a lot of these, I don't want to say scammers out there, because the companies that are promoting some of these products with no basis, that may sound the same, that may look the same, that you can get over the counter, that are considered dietary supplements, a lot of these times that they all categorize themselves out, that if you look at the thing, hasn't been FDA approved or reviewed, etc. As the FDA will allow you to get to a certain point before you start getting on the radar. And when you get on the radar is that somebody complains. One of the competitors in the industry says, hey, FYI, they're making claims that they shouldn't be making, or what have you. FDA will reach out and send them a warning letter first, and then it'll get probably a little bit more involved after that, saying, how are you, give me your research to back up some of these claims that you're making through the advertisements or through some of these sales forces that a lot of these organizations entail. And so having something like this not only reinforces you guys to say, okay, you can feel very, very confident that now there's validated research, IRB approved research that has been published in a scientific peer-reviewed journal that you can actually have in your bag and know that it's there and feel comfortable and confident that it's there. What it also does is that as patients, not only salespeople, but also as patients, I've used the sleep patch. I love it. Very, very deep sleep, by the way. Very, very deep. When again, the noise begins to rise within the industry and there's a lot of sales or a lot of volume, what happens? Well, you as a patient are excited about it. And what do? You go bring it to your doctor. And you go bring it to the doctor saying, hey, I'm using this, it works, what do you think? And the doctor, clinicianally, professionally trained physician, where's the data? What's the research, right? And if there isn't any, they're going to say, don't know about it. I think you're wasting your money, right? And there's no data out there. I never heard of it before. They can actually now, well, yes, there is actually, right? And they can actually do that. That's another huge benefit for this, because a lot of the clinicians out there, all they want is that validation to show it. They may not know about it. Once they see it, they buy into it. Once they see the names that are on it, the authors of Jeff and others, they buy into it. What did we look at? Out of the 148 patients, we had patients whose primary pain complaint was arthritis, neuropathy, radiculopathy, which is radiating pain, and then myofascial musculoskeletal pain. A lot of low back, obviously a lot of knees, lower leg extremities, upper back, shoulders, neck, etc. We wanted to see if after using the patch for 7 or 14 days, was there a change in the severity of their pain and the interference that pain brings in their everyday life. What did we show? On the severity score, over 14 days, the severity scored almost 50%. Huge deal, huge deal. P, if you look at that, I'm not a stat guy. Mr. Stat Guy is over there. P is, less than 0.001. What that means, it's the best stat that you can get in the p-value. What that means is that the result, 1 in 1,000, that they're by chance. Okay, so based on the number of people in the study, it powered it properly, that even if you had, and again, results, again, you guys aren't neuroscientists, I'm a researcher, I tend to get into this. When you throw a big bunch, if I took a poll of all of you right now, the results would probably look like a bell curve, right? A bell curve is just, an upside down bell. Actually, a regular bell. And you have the outliers, the extremes, and you have really, if you have enough people, a big group in the middle. That big group in the middle is what validates in terms of statistics. And so the larger and stronger that middle part is, the stronger the data is. And that's where you get to that point, 0, 0, 1. So the severity, out of a score of 10, that first line, they started at a 4 out of a 10. After 14 days after using the patch, they basically cut it in half to 2.5. On the interference score, also decreased 50%, 0.001. Interaction, how does it interfere? Sleeping, walking, working, there's 7 components to it. Started at almost 2.5, ended up, again, almost half of that, 1.29, 0.001. Can't get any better. How much did their physical activity change from the start, when they started the patch, versus 7 days and 14 days? Light physical exercise, moderate, heavy, all increased during the time. And it was 0.001 for baseline to day 14 and day 7 to 14 as well. After 14 days of wearing a patch, 82% of the patients reported less or a lot less the use of oral medications. Statistically significant positive outcomes, 0.001 again, in all measured quality of life. This is in addition to the severity decrease, the interference decrease, now quality of life. How are your quality of life improvements in general activity, mood, relationship with other people, sleep, normal workload, walkability, enjoyment? All 0.00. Out of the 148 patients, there was only 1 reported adverse event, swelling, deemed as non-serious by the clinician. In the US, for IRB approved studies, every single adverse event, whether it be a rash, whether it be a heart attack, whether it be a stroke, or what have you, has to be reported if that person is enrolled in the study. Does it mean that the adverse event is due to the actual product being studied? No, you have to report it, okay? So I don't know about this one. At 148, there's 1. Nobody else had any adverse events reported. There was swelling. Again, it wasn't serious. They stopped the treatment. They withdrew from the study, and it resolved. Was it due to the patch itself? Who knows? And we'll never know, really. But you have to report it. People reported their self-perceived pain relief. This is in addition to the validated scales we use. Now, what they think happened? Personally, how did they think they did? Because again, they don't remember what they put on survey 1 when they got to day 7. Day 14, they're filling out the surveys again. They don't remember what they put in. They don't have copies of it. They don't remember what they did when they enrolled or a week later after they went back to their doctors. Looking at increments of 0 to 10 again, with complete relief being number 10. What did they think happened with the patch? At baseline, they said they had about 27.5% relief from their current medications. The current medications they were taking, those over-the-counters, those NSAIDs, those opioids if they were on opioids. Day 7, after using the patch, 61% noticed a pain relief, higher obviously, double than that 27% that showed relief. Day 14, 72% saw pain relief after use. So then we looked at, okay, what was the percentage of pain relief from baseline to day 7, 0.001, there you go again, and then from baseline to day 14, 0.001. How did their concurrent use of medication change over that period of time? 82% reported a lot less usage of oral medications. What actually happened? 55% at baseline were taking an over-the-counter product. 53% were taking a prescription anti-inflammatory. 16% were taking a muscle relaxant. 2% taking an opioid. At day 14, 11 patients were still using a prescription anti-inflammatory. You look above, 79, 53% of patients. So it went from 79 down to 11 after day 14, 0.001. That's an 87% reduction in 2 weeks using the patch for those people who are on prescription. Numbers were a little less. 24 were taking a muscle relaxant, 2%. 3 of them were taking an opioid. But in the muscle relaxants, went from 24 to 2 patients at day 7, and then obviously 24 to 1 patient at day 14. Also a big deal, 0.001. Baseline for opioids was only 3 of them. We actually went from 3. I didn't put it on here. It went from 3 to 1 person using an opioid. Significant. You only had 3 people. You can't really make a judgment whether or not that was true if you had 100 people on opioids at the beginning. Still a decrease, but I'm only sharing with you those 0.001. But you did find 3 to 1 out of what you got. Good deal also. How did the patients use it? At the beginning of the study, they were told and instructed to use 1 patch per day. 134, 91% of the patients reported that they did use that in that fashion almost all the time, kept it on all the time. Of the 14 patients, when they felt better, they took it off. And then they put it on again when pain came back, okay? But we have to report it. They didn't do as instructed. It's an observational study. It's not that controlled from a formal FDA clinical trial. Day 7, 55% reported that it felt pain relief in less than 20 minutes after applying the patch. At day 7, again, 35% reported that it took longer than 20 minutes. What happened, if you look from day 7 to 14, more patients reported that they felt pain relief. That could have been where they placed it, right? If they placed it, maybe sometimes you have to adjust the location, and they got more comfortable with it. And again, they don't remember what they said their previous survey. Patient satisfaction, scale of 1 to 5, day 14, 4.6, easy to apply and convenient. 4.2, preferred over oral pills, medication, preferred over other pain relieving. We are so ingrained to take something by mouth, right? Physicians are so ingrained to write an oral prescription, all right? What you're seeing here, and we've seen this in other studies we've done, is that people just like putting something in their mouth because they think it's going to work, you know? It's habit, and it's habit forming, whether it be smoking, putting something to their mouth, one of the smoking, kicking the habits, and, you know, looking forward to the new patches coming out for that, is one of the smoking cessation companies I worked for actually was, when we were doing a study several years ago, we're giving them Tootsie Rolls or a lollipop to put in their mouth because of that just hand motion of smoking, right? So it's just that constant habitual thing. Some of this, 4.2, is still great, you know, in between strongly agree that it's preferred. You're still going to have a section of people who want to put something in their mouth. Day 14, overall satisfaction. 1 out of 5. Also, you know, very satisfied or extremely satisfied. So what did the results show? This is all in the paper, by the way. And this is all, with all these, it's not me making up these words. These are signed off by Jeff, the pain professor who put his name behind this article. Study results indicate that this non-pharmacologic, non-invasive haptic fibroprotectile trigger technology embedded topical patch reduces pain severity and interference medications, including prescribed anti-inflammatory other oral medication for adult patients with arthritic, neuropathic, and musculoskeletal pain. It suggests that the patch has incredible potential to be added to the current arsenal of non-invasive and non-pharmacologic pain therapies. He's not talking to consumers right now. He's talking to his peers and other clinicians. Consumers don't read Journal of Anesthesia and Pain Research. Further evaluation, including data from the control that we're doing, the crossover groups, are forthcoming and should support the use of the OTC pain patch as first-line non-pharmacological treatment option as part of the multimodal treatment program. Big deal. So congratulations for being here. You've taken a good step. And again, you know, Tom, what you said earlier, you know, you're a small group of people, you know. I just got introduced this less than a year ago. And so I'm pretty pleased what we've been able to show. Pretty excited about what this means, not only for the field, from a personal perspective in the pain space of giving another alternative treatment, but also what it can do, not only this patch, but some of the others that we'll be studying and hopefully seeing positive results over the years. So good luck to you. I am out of this cold weather. I'm going to catch a plane. But thanks very much for having me.